introduce someone who given an economic report. After 21 years, it was time to quit. And I worked closely with him last year, and then Pat took it over this year, and I had minimal input on it. A couple things I want to mention beforehand. At the end of the presentation, you can pick up a copy of the report. Mike will have it over at the table there. And every year, over the last probably 15 years, I had an intern who was assigned to me from the College of Business, thanks to me, to help me with this. But this year, Pat has an intern. I can't pronounce his last name. I'll pronounce his first name, Ingelo. Ingelo. Could you stand up? Ingelo is a graduate student from where? And where is your country?
Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast.
Yes.
So he's here at UCA, and he worked very hard at this year. I know I gave a little bit of input. Anything else I need to mention beforehand? In fact, I've had so much time this spring because I didn't have to do this. I'm taking an art history course at UCA. But I'm withdrawing it. I can't pass the course. I found that out. But I'm pleased not have the duty of doing this here because it does take a lot of time. And I think Pat will appreciate how much time it really does take now. Dr. Cantrell was born in Eugene, Oregon, and lived there until she went to Southern Methodist University in Texas. And I asked her, why Southern Methodist University in Texas from Oregon? She said, well, at that time, it's furthest I could get away from home. So, and her PhD is also from Southern Methodist University in economics. And she started at UC in 1984 and served dean from 2003 to 2012. And she's currently professor of economics in the Department of Economics. So I present to you Dr. Pat Cantrell, and she will do the presentation today. And be sure to pick up a report afterwards.
Well, I must say I feel sort of like the person that shows up at Thanksgiving every year with 2 Sara Lee pies and says, I baked these. Because the format of this presentation and the number crunching that's been done have been done by Roger Lewis and by Ingelo Guatera. And I must give credit to them. I'm just here to amuse you and to help you read our slides.
Technical bit.
Yes. It takes a little bit.
It says check this. It's there.
Input terminal, that's not me, is it?
It worked fine earlier.
It worked great earlier. And it will here in just a moment. Not to worry. This is the 65th report that we've had of the Faulkner County Economic Report. And many people in this room have been authors in the past of that report. I know many people that this report has depended upon.
There it is.
That's a good sign. I've seen that before.
Oh. There we go. There we go.
That'd be my problem there.
In this report, we're going to start with some national economic information, and then we're going to get to some state and local information. And I think you'll be relatively pleased. All of this news is good news, except for a very few things which were beyond our control.
All right.
Here we go.
Right.
That blanks it.
No notes, that's a lie, really. I do have some. Okay, this report's prepared for the Conway Rotary clubs, and the University of Central Arkansas provides funding, as it has for this report, and with the support of the Dean Hargis. He's here. Okay, Roger Lewis is preparing. Roger is the report author. That's what he says. That's what he says. Carrying his name out of respect for what he's done for this report in the past. I'm the coordinator, and Engelo did the work. And so here we go. The first data we're going to talk about is the national gross domestic product, and it was 2.4% last year, the same as it was the year before. That's really pretty good for times like this. The national unemployment rate was 5.3% this last year, and that too is awfully good. It's lowest since 2008. The National Consumer Price Index is the way most people measure the inflation rate. You'll notice the inflation rate was less than 1% this last year. If we look at the components of the Consumer Price Index, we'll see some of the reasons for the low inflation rate. The apparel industry was down 0.9%. Energy prices were down 12.6%. And transportation, I'll not lean on this podium again. Transportation was down 4.1%. Now we're going to look at some monthly unemployment rate. Wait for it. The red is the United States, green is Arkansas, blue is Faulkner County, and Conway is coming in black. And you'll see how low the unemployment rate is in Conway. It's 4.7%. This is the unemployment rate over time. You can see how much it has declined. It hasn't been this low since about 6-7 years ago. Now let's look at the Dow. There couldn't be better news than the Dow. It hit 18,000 not too long ago. It closed this last year at 17,425, which was down 2.2% from last year, but that's still 31.4% above the pre-recession high back in 2008. The S&P average price-earnings ratio is about 22, and the stock market looks to be quite healthy and poised for another good run. Now, here's some interesting news. The housing market in Conway has been rather complicated. The blue there are single-family units. The black figures that are coming in there are duplexes. You can barely see them. There haven't been that many built since the mid-2000s. And the green figures there are multifamily dwellings, and you'll notice in the last year there were no multifamily dwellings produced in Conway, but that's really kind of unrealistic in that it doesn't include the public buildings, and UCA has just been building like crazy. There are 4 new sorority houses, so we definitely have some new multifamily dwellings on the campus of UCA. Now, it is true that building permits were down 27% this last year, but real estate sales were up 14%. And the value of real estate building permit data is down 18%. But the news is good. The real estate that exists in town is selling very well. Here's the population figures for Conway, 64,313. And for the county, coming in green there, 121,536. Now, our next slide is on births and deaths, and I figure you all understand that. The young people are having more children than the rest of us. Now, the property tax assessment in 2015 includes some real estate that was valued at 3.04% higher, and all property was down just slightly, but the assessments were good this year. Here's some cost of living information that shows how much it would take to live in other cities for what you could live in Conway for $50,000 worth. And as I explained to my students, this means that the prices are 50% higher in Seattle than they are in Conway. That does not mean that you can buy a house in Seattle for $72,000, something that I've been explaining to my daughter on a regular basis. We got some information here on violent crime. The violent crime statistics for Conway are the low ones over there on the far left. And you'll notice that they're down from 2010. The red figure is 2010, the yellow figure is 2014, they're down from 2010. The violent crime in Conway is about 4 instances per 1,000. And that compares to the violent crime in Little Rock, which is 72, or excuse me, 46 crimes per 1,000. So we're looking at 4 versus 46. There's quite a difference there. And you'll see that difference on the next slide about property crime also. Property crime in Conway, again, looks relatively good. 46 crimes per 1,000 versus 72 in Little Rock in 2014. Now, we rely heavily on Conway Corp, and we rely on them for one thing for some of the forecasting that they do. And one of the forecasts that they make is of electric meters, and they're forecasting an increase of 3.9% for 2016. This is the most forward-looking data that we have in this report. The Conway Corporation does a fine job forecasting electric meters, and from electric meters you can get population, and that's where the population figures have traditionally come from. Now we look at sales tax receipts here. Sales tax receipts were up. They were at a level of $9 million for the city, and 24 million for the county, and 9 million for the county, and excuse me, the high number 24, that's for Conway, and the 9, that's for the county. Both of them are up by 2% and 2.6% respectively. Now, retail percentage sales are good in Conway. Of the sales in Faulkner County, 80% of them are made in Conway. Another figure that you might want to note there is Greenbrier's up to 5.9%. That's a considerable increase since last year for Greenbrier also. Now, hotel sales were down a little bit, down to 18 million, but that's still a tremendous number of hotel sales for Conway. It seems to me, I've been here since '84, that seems like a really large number to me. That's down perhaps 6%, and restaurant sales on the next slide are at $172.7 million, which is down just slightly from last year. Now, here's the interesting stuff, the bank deposits. The bank deposits are $1.79 billion in Faulkner County. Isn't that incredible? Deposits were up by $41 million just last year. That was 2.4%. The return on assets is 1.20, and the return on equity is 9.63, both quite good. Now, in terms of the composition of the market share of banking, you'll notice that First Security and Centennial are just about exactly the same size right now, and they plus Regions Bank contribute about 70% of the market share of the market, and then the great competition occurs throughout this market. Now, as you might suspect, there are more cars on the highway. They have gone up by 5%. Vehicle registrations. Okay, here we have the severance tax revenue. This is the revenue from the natural gas production, and it goes to the municipal highway system, and it was down 26.5% this last year. As we all know, national gas prices are down, and that was the cause of that. Now, the number of wells in Faulkner County actually increased from 399 to 439, and there were 6 billion cubic feet of natural gas produced since the beginning of the Fayetteville shale play. Now we've got some figures on the lottery. The lottery sales were up again in 2015. Conway ranks 5th in the sales of lottery tickets. That's 52nd in the sales per capita and 58th in sales per capita income. Now, in 2015, they gave out 34,950 awards to students to attend colleges in the state, both 2- and 4-year. In 2016, they plan to give out almost the same number, 34,322. And over 200,000 students have been helped by this lottery scholarship. Now we've got some figures here from the Arkansas Employment and Security. The number of employers in the county was up by 54. The number of employees was actually down slightly by 1,863. And the average weekly earnings were down by about $20. Now this is third quarter data, and the Christmas season may have changed this result. We don't have that data yet quite. Okay, now we've got some agricultural production. Now this is the exciting part. Wheat, corn, and rice were all three down about 90% last year in gross output. And soybeans were down 57% in gross output. And the reason was we had floods in May, and they lasted till June, and then we had floods in December again. And that information comes from the Cooperative Extension Service. It's one of those things we have no control over. As you've noticed by the weather we've had this week. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about are the effects of tourism on the county. And the tourists spent 5.16% more than they did last year here in the county. And the payroll from tourist businesses was up 5.22%. And so all in all, this is a very healthy report for Faulkner County. Faulkner County today is in very good shape, and we have all of these figures in table form for you to pick up if you're interested in having a copy. Does anybody have any questions?
What was the top restaurant sales for the year?
Well,
We get that. We always have to know who the top sales are.
I admit that's an awfully interesting question, but we no longer have that access to that data.
Let me
Correct.
add that.
Let Roger.
The legislators passed a a law last time, one legislator who owns a restaurant in Springfield, this is my so far. He passed a law exempting the A&P tax from the freedom of information. So it's no longer the freedom of information. So talk to your legislator. So it's not available for individual restaurant sales.
That's where I came.
Other questions? Yes, Dan?
Pat, what would you think are our biggest risks of a downturn in the economy? What scenarios would you see that could really hurt us in the next year or so?
Well, I think everyone's is worried a tiny bit about the Dow and whether there will be a correction of more than 3.3%.
Okay.
Some of the world events are kind of staggering, and that sometimes will affect the Dow negatively, and some people are worried about that. Although the price-equity ratio is healthy. Before the last downturn, it was about 30, and so the fact that it's like 22 right now is a pretty good indicator of health.
You know, I was just going to add, basically the employment in the natural gas industry, of course, has gone down.
Yes.
And it's kind of amazing that we've kind of absorbed that a little bit with other industries, because our unemployment's gone down. So
yes.
Either that or everybody's moving out. I'm not too sure which, but our population's increasing.
No, the population is increasing, and we expect it to increase in the next year, according to Conway data.
Yeah.
So, no, they're not moving out. They're being absorbed into other sectors of the economy. Professional and business category was up this year, and several other private ventures like internet services and that kind of thing, technological employees were up also. What else? We could refer questions to Roger if I can't answer. Yes. I must say Bob the Corp's being awfully quiet. I really appreciate that. I was a member of this club for many years. And I tell you, you probably don't recognize me because my hair is a different color, but it wasn't this report that did it. It was a conscious choice that I made about a year ago to go natural. Anybody have another question for me? Okay, then we'll let you go to work.
Thank you, Pat. Yes, Jacqueline, I wanted to see which McDonald's ranked up there and which Chick-fil-A, now that there has two. I was really interested in that, so anyway. Pat, our club has adopted a program, and that has never done that. We sincerely thank you for your presentation today, and the members of the Rotary Club of Conway wish to express our gratitude by providing 50 newspapers in your honor to local classrooms and students through the Log Cabin Democrats Newspapers and Education Program. Thank you so much.
Nice. Thank you.